Listening is an art. It's one of the many things that should be taught in school, but it's not. This brief training video will go over a few key aspects of listening, which should be helpful moving forward as it pertains to listening, becoming a better listener, tips for giving feedback, tips for receiving feedback. So for just a moment, just set aside all your distractions and go through this brief video that should help you become a better communicator. Listening is an essential part of communication. It's not taught in schools these days, but it's a skill that can be learned. All too often, we all fall into the trap of not listening well enough, whether it's to instructions, to a loved one, to a coworker. Sometimes the results can be disastrous. As we listen more effectively, it helps us to remember that everybody that we talk to has needs, cares, concerns, and fears just as real as our own. As we teach the rising generation, it's imperative that we listen to what they have to say. Listening is also something that can be learned. This is a skill that if you're willing to put forth the effort, you can become better at it. In the workplace, listening is particularly important. It was Stephen Covey in his book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, that he used the phrase, seek first to understand, then be understood. How many times have you been in a conversation knowing that whoever was supposed to be listening to you was doing nothing more than just waiting for your lips to stop moving so that they could get the next word in? It's not fun to have that kind of communication with anybody. There's 2 parts to effective listening: active listening and empathetic listening. First of all, let's take a brief overview of active listening. Active listening requires rephrasing and checking and a non-judgmental attitude. So rephrasing and checking. Intuitively, if somebody said something to you, being an active listener, you could actually rephrase or restate back to them what they just said. For example, if a friend of yours was wanting to tell you about something that was really important to them, something that you might want to try would be to state back to them what they just said, or rephrase it back to them. 9 times out of 10, if you rephrase something to somebody, they'll come back and clarify it even further. And then once you think you have it understood, it's even good to rephrase it back to them again, or to restate it. After you've gone through that a couple, 2, 3 times, then you can actually be more assured that you're both on the same page. Also, while you're listening actively, make sure that you don't have a judgmental attitude. Don't jump to any conclusions. Simply listen. Take the opportunity to listen without prejudging or without formulating your response. Empathetic listening, it requires putting yourself in the speaker's place. It requires that you're seeing things from the speaker's point of view, and then you understand how the speaker feels. In order to be an effective communicator in all circumstances, you must become a good active and empathetic listener. When you're listening in adversarial situations, create a productive framework with a positive stance. Try to cast the conversation in a positive light rather than a negative one. When you're focusing on the positive, listeners should always strive to create a positive present as opposed to a negative past. Try not to go back and relive the past that you've had with this particular person that's speaking. Nobody likes to be defined for their weaknesses. Just as you wouldn't want somebody to define you by your weaknesses when you're speaking, give them the benefit of the doubt. Listen to them thoroughly. Ask questions. If you think you understand, ask additional questions. Make sure that you understand exactly what they're talking about. And then cast the whole conversation in a positive light. Now let's get into some tips on giving feedback. Consider your motives. Feedback should always be helpful. Otherwise, there's no reason to offer it. Find out if other people involved are open to receiving feedback first. Then listen carefully. Then rephrase what they're saying to make sure that you understand them. Deal only with behavior that can be changed. Deal with specifics, not generalities. Describe the behavior. Do not evaluate it. Let the other person know the impact that the behavior has on you. Use an I statement to accept responsibility and accountability for your own perceptions and emotions. To make sure that the recipients of the feedback have understood your message in the way that you intended it, ask them to rephrase what they heard you say. But remember, you can give caring feedback without a good technique, but the slickest technique in the world is not going to hide a lack of caring. Caring is what counts. Do you truly care about this person? Do you truly care that they progress? Now let's get into the tips for receiving feedback. Seek out feedback. It will nearly always provide you with information that will in some way help you improve your performance. Listen carefully. Receiving feedback requires a heightened awareness of yourself and the person offering the feedback. Listen actively. Restate the feedback in your own words so that the speaker knows that the message that you are receiving is the same as the speaker is intending to send. Also, listen empathetically. Put feedback in its proper context by observing the speaker's body language, tone of voice, emotions. Consider the speaker's reasons for even offering the feedback. Finally, notice how you feel when somebody offers you feedback. Becoming angry or defensive can cloud your ability to listen effectively. Feedback is a gift. If you consider feedback to be a gift, it'll help you throughout the rest of your life. So in summary, effective listening is a skill that each of us can learn and can constantly improve upon. Listening plays a vital role in forming relationships, developing teams, and finding solutions. The best listening is both active and empathetic. Listening can be a tool in turning a negative situation into a positive one. Listening well is an important part of receiving and giving feedback. Hopefully this video will help you become a better listener, a more active and empathetic listener, and a better communicator altogether.